Today we are going to start with an important concept called limit of a function at a point. And then we'll see how to compute the limits. So to motivate the concept of limit of a function at a point, let us ask the following question. You are given a function and you want to predict some suitable value for the function at a point. That point may or may not be in the domain of the function. We ignore even if the point is in the domain of the function and function is given some value, we don't bother about that value. What we want to do is we want to predict a suitable value for the function at that point by looking at the values of the function at nearby points. Clear to everybody what the question is? We are given some point and the function is defined at all points nearby that point. So we want to look at the values of the function at the points nearby that point, and looking at that values we want to predict, we want to say a suitable value for the function should be the following. Okay, so that is the question and we would like to answer this question. How do we go about answering this question? So let us look at a particular example. Look at the function which is defined on the interval 0 to 3 to r. It is defined by the formula 2x plus 1 if x is between 0 and 3 except at the point 1, and at the point 1 the value is given to be 5. Okay. Now the function is defined at the point 1 to be 5. Observe that it is also defined at all points nearby the point x is equal to 1. We ignore the value x is equal to 1 to be 5 and we look at the values at nearby points and we want to predict a suitable value for the function. So this is the graph of the function. It is a linear function. You can all draw the graph of the function. So it is a straight line except at the point 1 the value is 5. Okay. So if you want to predict a suitable value at the point 1, what will you try to do? At a point you want to predict some suitable value by looking at the values at nearby points. So what you will try to do? You will take a point near that point where you want to predict a value and look at the value f of x and try to come closer and closer to the value where you want to predict. Okay? And analyze the values of the function at those points when you are coming closer and closer to x is equal to 1 in this case. Clear what we are going to do? Our strategy is going to be at this point 1 you want to predict the value. So look at points which are near 1 in a neighborhood of the point 1. Look at the corresponding values f of x and see how do they behave. Analyze those values, right? And try to come closer and closer to the value x is equal to 1 and look at the values of f of x as you come closer and closer to x is equal to 1. So now the question is, how do you come closer to a point on the line? So x is a point equal to 1 where we want to predict. We want to take a point nearby. There is no problem. We can take a point nearby this x here. Okay. So at this point the value is defined. Okay. Then we want to make this point x come closer and closer to 1. Okay. And the notion of closeness on the real line is given by, there is a notion of distance on the line which helps us to define the notion of closeness, namely absolute value. Or what we can do is we can pick up sequences of numbers, say that sequence converges to 1, right? That means xn will be coming closer and closer to 1 as n goes to infinity, and look at the corresponding sequence f of xn and see what happens to that sequence, behavior of that sequence. So what we are going to do is, for this we approach the point x is equal to 1 by sequences. So let us take a sequence an. Of course an is not going to be equal to 1 because at the point 1 we are going to predict a value. So take sequences ans, say that ans are not equal to 1 and an converges to the value 1. And then what we do? Look at the value f of an, that gives you a sequence, that is an image sequence. Okay, and analyze that sequence. What happens to that sequence? So let us analyze that and see what happens. So take a sequence an which is converging to 1. Look at f of an. What is f of an when an is not equal to 1? The formula is given to us. It is 2x plus 1. So f at an will be equal to 2an plus 1. So an is converging to 1. Now look at the limit theorems for sequences. If an is convergent to 1, where does 2an plus 1 converge? Right? That converges to 3. So f of an, which is equal to, there is an equal sign missing here, that converges to 1. So as we come closer to x is equal to 1, fx comes closer to the value 3. So we can say that the suitable value for the function at x is equal to 1 should be equal to 3 and not equal to 5 as is defined by the function. Let us look at one more example to illustrate this idea of predicting a value. Look at the function fx is equal to, everybody is familiar with the square bracket function, greatest integer function? Okay. So this is the greatest integer function. We want to predict a suitable value for this function at the point x is equal to 1. Again, we will take sequences which converge to 1 and analyze what happens to f of those sequences. So for this case, let me take a sequence 1 minus 3 by n. Okay. So look at the sequence an which is converging to 1. Okay. Look at the sequence cn which is converging to 1. And look at the sequence to be 1 minus 3 by n. 1 minus 1 by 3, 1 by 3n. So as n goes to infinity, what is happening? That sequence, that is going to 0. So the sequence cn is converging to the point 1 where we want to predict a suitable value. But keep in mind, these cn's are all on the left side of 1. So what is the value of the function at this point? What is f at cn? Greatest integer function. So for every point cn, the value is equal to, so cn goes to 1, the value is equal to 0. Right? So it's a constant sequence, f of cn is a constant sequence. So where does it converge? To the constant itself. So that is 0. So if I look at the sequence 1 minus 1 by 3n, then this converges to 1, but the image sequence converges to 0. So I am analyzing the behavior of the function at point near the point 1 on the left side of 1. Now let us analyze on the right side of it. So let me take a sequence 1 plus 1 by 3n. Now I am on the right side of it, but still the sequence cn, which is 1 plus 1 by 3n, that still converges to the value 1. It is still coming to the value 1 as n goes to infinity. And look at the sequence f of cn. What is f of cn? On the right side, the value is all equal to 1. It's the constant sequence. So it converges to the value 1. So what is happening in this example? I want to predict a suitable value for the function at the point x is equal to 1. But I approach the point 1 from the left by sequences, then I say that the suitable value should be equal to 0. But if I look on the right side and approach the point 1 on the right side, then the suitable value should be equal to 1. So I am not able to decide what should be a suitable value for the function at that point. Right? We are not decided. We cannot decide. So this motivates us to define what should be called as the limit of a sequence at a point. So let us take a function f defined on an interval taking values in R, and let us take a point C in I, in the interval I. We say that a number L is limit of the function at the point x is equal to C, provided whenever I take a sequence Cn in I, in the domain I, where Cn is not equal to C, such that Cn's converge to the point C where I want to analyze the limit, f of Cn should converge to the value L. As I approach the point where I want to find the limit C, so for every sequence in the domain Cn converging to C, f of Cn should converge to the same value, namely say L, then that L is called limit of the function at the point x is equal to C. Is it clear to everybody what is the concept of a limit? A number L will be called limit of the function at the point x is equal to c, provided for every sequence Cn in the domain Cn not equal to c, whenever Cn converges to the point c, f of Cn should converge to that value L. Then that value L is called limit of the function at that point. And we write it as limit x going to c f of x equal to, you can write it equal to L. So in our previous example, when we had that function, you can say that limit is equal to 3. In the previous, but whatever sequence we take, which is converging to 1, f of Cn always converges to the value c. There is no doubt, there is no hesitancy, right? We can say that limit is equal to 3. While in the other example, the greatest integer function, the limit does not exist, because I am able to get two different sequences, both converging to the value x is equal to 1, but f of xn for the different sequences, the limits are different. They are not converging to the same value. So the limit for this function does not exist. Okay? So to show that limit of a function at a point does not exist, it is enough either to produce at least one sequence Cn which converges to C, but f of Cn is not convergent. So at least either produce one sequence, right, Cn which converges to C, but f of Cn is not convergent, or produce at least two different sequences which converge to the point C, but those limits of those f of those sequences are different, as in the greatest integer function. Right? So that will prove that the limit does not exist. But to prove limit exists, for every sequence Cn converging to C, we have to show that f of Cn is convergent to the same value. Okay. So that is what I have written here. Either you can produce a sequence which converges to C, but f of Cn is divergent, or produce at least two different sequences so that their limits are different, but both converge to the point C. Now, we had limit theorems for sequences. They give us immediately theorems about limits of functions at a point. So let us look at those. Suppose f is a function, say that fx, x going to C, and gx, x going to C both exist. F and g both have limits at the point C, both exist. Then we can add the functions, right? You can multiply the functions, you can divide the functions and ask whether these operations have limits or not. So the first, it says f plus minus gx limit exists and is equal to limit of f plus limit of g. And what will be the proof of this? To prove this statement, how will you prove this statement? So let us see, how do you write a proof of this statement? Can you verbally see the proof? First of all, you want to show fx is converging, gx is converging, you want to show that f plus g is convergent, right? So we want to show that f plus g converges, f plus g has a limit at the point C. Okay? So let us take a sequence. How do you prove a function has a limit? Take any sequence Cn which is converging to C and look at the image sequence and show that is convergent. So take a sequence Cn which is convergent to C. So what will be the image of f plus g of Cn? What will be the value of f plus g at Cn? It will be f of Cn plus g of Cn. But I know f of Cn is convergent to some limit, say L, right? G of Cn is converging to some limit M. So by the theorem on sequences, if two sequences are convergent, then the sum of the sequences is also convergent and the limit is equal to sum of the limits. So using the corresponding theorem for limits of sequences, what we get? Limit of f plus g at Cn is equal to limit of fn plus limit of gn. But limit of fn is equal to say L, limit of gn is equal to say m. So limit of f plus g will be equal to L plus m. So that is same as limit of f plus limit of g. Clear? Because the corresponding result holds for sequences Same thing holds for limits of functions at that point. So it becomes a obvious corollary of those theorems, consequence of those theorems. Is it clear how simple it is now? Once you have the result for sequences? Yes? Okay. So this is f plus minus g. Same thing holds for product, because for product also we have a similar result, and similarly for alpha times a f, and similarly by quotient, provided limit of the quotient is not equal to 0. Keep in mind, if an is convergent to a and bn is convergent to b, then an over bn you can analyze only when limit of bn, which is b, is not equal to 0. So that is corresponding is put here. Limit of gx, the quotient should not be equal to 0. So same results which are true for sequences, same results hold, and the proofs are just one line proofs for each one of them. Look at a sequence Cn converging to C. Look at whatever function you want to analyze, f plus g, f minus g, or f into g, or f over g. Look at the corresponding sequence. So what are the corresponding sequences? F of Cn plus g of Cn, or f of Cn minus f of Gn, or in this case it will be alpha times f of Cn, right? And similarly in the product it will be f of Cn into g of Cn. Now invoke the corresponding theorems about sequences to conclude that the limits exist. So we get that this is called algebra of limits, because we are adding, multiplying and dividing. So this theorem is called algebra of limits. So this you have use it left and right in your school. And so let us, for example, I want to prove, look at the function fx is equal to x cube when x is not equal to 3, x is not equal to 2. I want to say that the limit is equal to 8. So how do I write the proof? So take a sequence Cn which goes to 2. So consider a sequence Cn goes to 2 and look at corresponding sequence f of Cn. So what is corresponding sequence f of Cn? So f of Cn will be equal to f of Cn, f of x is equal to x cube, so that is equal to Cn cube, right? But limit of Cn cube is same as, now here I am going to use the limit theorem for sequences. Limit of Cn cube is equal to cube of the limit of Cn's, and that is equal to Cn are going to 2, so this goes to 2 cube, that is 8, so that limit is equal to 8. Clear? What is the process of finding the limit? At whatever point you want to find limit of x going to c. So take a sequence Cn going to c, look at f of Cn and analyze that sequence. What is the limit of that? For example, let us look at the function 1 over x, x not equal to 0. I want to analyze what is the limit of this as x goes to 0. Right? So let us look at, if I want to say that this limit does not exist, what shall I do? Either I produce at least one sequence Cn which converges to 0, but f of Cn does not converge, or produce two sequences Cn and Dn both converging to 0, but f of Cn converges to one limit, f of Dn converges to some other limit. So in this case it's quite easy to guess a sequence, 1 over n, right? So look at the sequence 1 over n, that goes to 0, but what is f of 1 over n? That is n, that goes to infinity, that is divergent. So limit of this does not exist. So limit of 1 over x, x not equal to 0 does not exist. We had sandwich theorem for sequences. Now we get a sandwich theorem for limits of function at a point. Okay? So look at three functions f, g and h defined in an interval around the point C. They may not be defined at the point C, right? But what we want, that if you look at on the right, left or right, that means in the interval C minus R to C plus R, except at the point x is equal to C, fx is less than gx is less than hx. So at all points nearby the point C, f is less than or equal to gx is less than or equal to hx. So if f has a limit, h has a limit, and both the limits are same, then g also will have the limit and it will be same value, right? Sandwich theorem. So as if limit of fx x going to c is L, which is same as limit of h x going to c, then g also has the limit. What is the proof? Same as sequences. You want to say that limit of gx is equal to L. You want to prove that. So what you will start with? Take a sequence Cn which converges to C, and you want to analyze what happens to g of Cn. But where is g of Cn? G of Cn is between f of Cn and h of Cn, and by sandwich theorem for sequences, though both of them converge to L, because limit of f is L and limit of h is L. So f of Cn converges to L, h of Cn converges to L. So by sandwich theorem for sequences, limit of g of Cn is also equal to L, and hence limit of gx is equal to L. Yes? Everybody can write this proof yourself? Yes? Okay. So that is, let us see one example of this. For example, let me take the function. Function is x times sine 1 over x, x not equal to 0. Here you can ask me what is the sine function. I can ask you what is sine function. What is sine theta? Yes? What do you think is sine theta? You have taken the liberty of sitting in the front, so I have the liberty of asking you, immediately catching you. What do you think is sine theta? Ratio of perpendicular. That is the only definition we know of. But that is geometry. Right? Analytically, we don't know what is sine theta. What is the analytic definition of sine theta? To say what is sine theta, I have to draw a circle, I have to look at the motion of a particle on a circle and see, right, that angle, and define height over hypotenuse, and similarly cos, and so on. But what is the definition of sine and cos? It's not easy. It's a difficult thing to define. So for time being, we'll not define what are sine and cos functions and trigonometric functions. We'll assume that whatever notion you have, geometric notion of trigonometric functions, keep that in mind. Using that and using the properties of those trigonometric identities and all that, we'll give you examples. If time permits, we'll tell you how to define this function also properly. Like we defined pi. Okay, properly. So let us look at x sine 1 over x for the time being, assuming you know sine function very well. So I want to know what is the limit of this as x goes to 0. Okay. So let us look at the absolute value of this function fx, which is bigger than or equal to 0. Sine is always less than or equal to 1, absolute value. So it is less than or equal to mod x. So fx, which is identically 0, is less than or equal to gx. So this is fx, so let me call this as gx. Gx is identically 0, f is in between, h is mod x. So sandwich between two functions. Identically 0, what happens as x goes to 0 of mod x? That goes to 0. So by sandwich theorem, this function fx, which is x sine 1 over x, limit x going to 0 is equal to 0 by sandwich theorem. Right? So simple. So this implies limit is equal to 0. So this is the concept of limit at a function at a point when we approach a point via sequences. I will give you another interpretation of this limit, which is slightly difficult sometimes to understand, but I will try to make it simpler. And it is equivalent to notion of the sequences. You can approach a point either by a sequence or by saying you are in a neighborhood of that point. So let me try to motivate the other way of looking at sequences. I am going to keep the same example which we looked at for sequences. Same example, namely fx is equal to 2x plus 1 when x is between 0 and 3 but x not equal to 1, and it is 5 when x is equal to 1. And what is we looked at the limit of this, and we said the natural value of this function, natural value which we should predict for this function at the point x is equal to 1 is 3 and not 5. So natural value we predict is 3. Now let us look at this difference fx minus 3. Look at a point x close to 1. So what will be the value of the function at that point? Fx. And what is the value we are saying the natural value that we are predicting is 3. So what would you like to call this difference fx minus 3? If you are not at the point 1, you are nearby it, you are taking the value as fx is equal to fx, the actual value you should be predicting is 3. So that is the difference, is the error you are making in predicting the actual value. Is it okay if I call this difference as the error I am making in predicting the value to be 3 instead of I am predicting the value to be f of x, because I am not at the point, I am nearby. So this is the error, and this error we want to make it small. Right? When you want to say you should be actually predicting 3, what you should be doing? As x is close to 1, this error should be made as small as you can. Is that okay? If you want to predict the actual value that you are expecting to be 3, then the error should be made small. Right? Error should be made actually equal to 0. So it should be made as small as we want it. So the idea is, I want to make this error small. But look at this error. What is the error equal to? What is f of x is equal to? 2x plus 1. So 2x plus 1 minus 3 is 2x plus 2. Supposing this error I want less than 1 by 10, 0.1. I want the error to be less than 0.1. Then where should be x? How far away I can take x to be? Then x should be at the most at a distance 1 over 20. Quite clear? Because if this is less than, then what is, if I take 2 out common, then x minus 1, the distance will be less than 1 over 20. So if x is in a neighborhood of the point 1 by a distance 1 over 20, then fx is in a neighborhood of 3 by a distance 1 over 10. That means if I want to make the error small, less than 1 by 10, then I should be close to the point 1 by a distance 1 over 20. I cannot be more away from that. Right? That is a margin. If I want the margin for error to be less than 1 by 10, then the margin, how far away I am allowed to be from the point 1 is at the most 1 over 20. So I am in terms of errors I am putting it. So that means, so here is a picture of that. At the point 1, if I take all points in a neighborhood at the most distance 1 over 20, then all the values will go in the neighborhood of the point 3 by distance 1 over 10. Okay? So we are saying that if you want to make this error small, actual value is 3. The value you are going at a point x, the value is going to be somewhere in between. So if you want to make this small, then you have to make the corresponding thing suitably small. Okay? So that's, let me put it this way. It says that for all points x between 0 and 3, x not equal to 1, if x minus 1 is less than 1 by 20, then fx minus 3 is less than 1 by 10. That is the property that the value that we expect f to take, namely 3, is having. Actually, there is nothing so special about 1 over 10. I can put it any number, and correspondingly I will get an estimate for this number. Here it was 1 by 10, I got 1 by 20. Supposing I put it as 1 over 100, I will get 1 over 200. So in general I can put anything. So given any number, small number epsilon, if x minus 1 is less than epsilon by 2, then fx minus 3 will be less than epsilon. And keep in mind, this epsilon 1 over 10 is beforehand I will be giving you. I want the margin for error to be smaller than this, less than 1 by 10. So I want the error, epsilon is coming from the word, Greek word, e, that is error. So this is nothing, in mathematics, one is never illogical. Right? All the names, notations are chosen with care so that notation itself should explain something to you. Right? We are not as illogical as human beings that I will name my son as Sundar Singh, whether he looks Sundar or not, that doesn't matter. Right? But we'll say something as limit, we'll say something as something, provided that name itself should clarify, right? Should say something about the property of that object. Okay? So this epsilon is coming from the word error, and the Greek mathematics is given the honor. So you are picking up the number, the letter epsilon. So given epsilon, the error for margin, I am able to find some margin for the point to be near that point, that whenever x is close to that point 1, where I am predicting the value by that much distance, then all fx are close to 3 by that much error. So now I can make a definition out of it. Given epsilon, right? So given epsilon, I am able to find something. So let us make a definition out of it. So given epsilon, error of margin, we can find a delta, which I call it as, which depends upon epsilon, the one which is given to me, such that whenever fx is close to L by a distance epsilon, whenever x is close to 1 by a distance delta. So fx will be close for all values of x which are close to 1 by a distance delta, then fx will be close to the value that you are predicting by a distance epsilon. So error will be small. So this makes us the definition. So f is a function, c is a point. We say L is called epsilon delta limit. Okay, we'll call it as epsilon delta limit because epsilon and deltas are going to appear, provided given any number epsilon, which is an error for margin, I am able to find a delta such that whenever x minus c is less than delta, should imply fx minus L is less than epsilon. Right? So this should happen for every point x close to c by a distance delta. So given epsilon, how close you want that L to be, okay, you will be able to find, if you are able to find a delta, right, then with this property, then this L is the limit of the function at that point. Okay. So this is another way of looking at the limit. If I can show you something, let me see if I can show you. Okay. Okay. I think you may not be able to read. That is all mathematics, but hope the picture. Yes. The important thing is at the bottom the picture. So given L will be called the limit, provided given this interval around it, given epsilon, okay, given this interval, around this point I am able to find some interval, some neighborhood, so that whenever I am in that neighborhood, the values falls in that margin for error. Okay. So given epsilon, epsilon is the error which is for the limit fx minus L less than epsilon. Don't ever try to remember or mug up this definition. Given epsilon greater than 0, there is a delta greater than 0, so that whenever x minus x less than delta, fx minus x less than epsilon. Somewhere because somewhere you will confuse between epsilon and delta. You will say somewhere given epsilon, you will write there exists a epsilon. Be very careful using symbols also. Given any epsilon, and 90% of the time when we ask in the exam, write a definition, somebody writes there exists a epsilon for all given delta. For given delta, there is a epsilon. All kind of things are written there because you try to remember. The idea is you want the error to be small. When you want error small, how small? As small as I want it. So you will give me epsilon. So given epsilon, what is the error? Fx minus L. So given epsilon, your fx minus L should be less than epsilon. For what x? You should be able to find a delta. So that for all x minus L, x minus c less than delta, that thing happens. That's all. So remember, understand, and then only you will be able to appreciate. Okay, so that's the definition of epsilon delta limit. And the two are same. Will not bother much about it. But let me show you the difference between the two definitions. See, in mathematics, some equivalent way of describing something is done. Why it is done? Because in some situations, one definition is useful. It's easier to prove something using one definition. In some other situations, the other definition is useful. Both are equivalent ways of looking at it. Okay? So I'll show you now how something is difficult or how. We proved that for fx equal to x cube, the limit was equal to 8. And how was? We took a sequence Cn, which converges to 2. We looked at f of Cn, which is Cn cube. right? Because Cn is going to 2, right? So Cn cube goes to 8, so limit is 8, finish. Now let us try to prove it using epsilon delta. Okay? So what I have to do? Given epsilon, I have to find a delta such that fx minus 8 should be less than epsilon. So let us analyze fx minus 8, fx minus L. I will try to write fx minus L in terms of x minus c, because that distance I know is going to be small. So we split this using our formulas for cubic. X minus 2 into x square plus 2x plus 4. A cube minus b cube formula. Use it. Now, supposing my x is going to be close to 2 by a distance at the most 1. Then I can estimate this quantity also. If x minus 2 is less than 1, then where is x going to be? Between 1 and 3. So maximum value of x is going to be 3. So what is the value for x square plus 2x plus 4? That will be less than x square, so that is less than 9. 2x, so that is less than 6, plus 4, so that is 19. So I can say fx minus L, I get an estimate for this, that fx minus L, okay, if x minus 2 is less than delta, then fx minus L will be less than 19. This is 19 times x minus 2, that is going to be delta. So in case my x minus 2 is less than delta, then fx minus L is going to be less than 19 delta. So now what is my problem? Given epsilon, I have to find a delta, right? So given epsilon, what should be the choice of my delta? So that 19 delta should be less than epsilon. Then x minus 2 less than delta will imply fx minus L will be less than epsilon. So given epsilon, I should choose delta, say that delta is, of course I assumed x minus 2 is less than 1 also. So it should be minimum of 1 and epsilon by 19. Then I will have, this will imply this is less than 19 delta, which is less than epsilon. So by epsilon delta method, if you want to prove limit is equal to 8, this is the process. So at times things are difficult using epsilon delta method. Okay, we will not stress much on epsilon delta method in this course, but just wanted to make you feel that there is some estimation going on. Okay, and the two definitions are equal. We will not prove that. We will assume this. So this theorem will assume that epsilon delta definition is same as the definition of limit by sequences that we have given. You can use either method you like to prove a limit exists or a limit does not exist. Okay. So equivalence is assumed. Proof is in the notes. Those who like can read it, but for exam it is not included. So let me now make something very clear. Limit of a function x going to c does not depend upon the value of the function at the point c. Let us be very clear. Limit is, you are predicting a value for the function at points by values nearby points. At that point, what is the value? We are not interested in that. We ignore that at all. In fact, the function may not be defined at that point at all. For example, 1 over x. Look at the function fx is equal to 1 over x. It is not defined at the point x is equal to 0, but still I can analyze whether the limit exists or not. Sin x sin 1 over x, the function that we considered today, that is not defined at the point x is equal to 0, but still the limit exists and is equal to 0. So for a limit to exist or not to exist, the function need not be defined at that point. It depends upon the values at the points nearby. Even if f is defined at c, f of limit may or may not exist. Even if you give a value, that does not ensure that the limit at that point will exist or will not exist. It does not affect at all. And even if the limit exists and the function is defined, the two may not be same. Like in the first example, the value we were predicting was 3, suitable value. The function was defined to be equal to 5. There is no correlation between them at all. Okay? And this is the second crucial thing. To find the limit, one has to always make a guess. As in any science, you have to make an intelligent guess by looking at the formula, what is the function, what is the point you are looking at the limit, make a guess, and then prove or disprove, whatever you want to do. Now, approaching a point, you can approach either from the left or from the right. Two directions are possible in real line. So you can split your definition of limit into sub-definitions, limit from the left, limit from the right. You can approach the point, like in the greatest integer function, we took two sequences, one coming from the left only and other coming from the right only, and the limits were different. We said limit does not exist. But supposing we consider only sequences coming from the left only, then the limit will exist, right? For the greatest integer function, at the point x is equal to 1, if we take only sequences, if we approach the point 1 only from the left, then the limit will exist. So that gives you the notion of what is called the left hand limit and the right hand limit. All of you are familiar with it. So let me write in terms of sequences. So take a sequence Cn strictly less than C, Cn converging to C, then f of Cn should converge to L. Then L is called left hand limit of the function at the point x is equal to C. In terms of epsilon delta definition, what it will be? Instead of looking at x minus delta and x plus delta, you will be looking at only C minus delta to C only on the interval on the left side. So given epsilon, there is a delta, so that whenever the point is between C minus delta to C, then fx is close to L. Fx minus L is less than epsilon. So that is epsilon delta. So this is left hand is noted by putting C with a negative sign. Epsilon delta will be for all x between C minus delta to C implies fx less than L. For a given epsilon, there is a delta with that property. I think all of you are familiar with the left hand limit, the right hand limit. Just wanted to indicate in terms of sequences Cn less than C, strictly less than C, Cn converging to C implies f of Cn. Similarly, the right hand. Okay, let us look at, this is a property I think we'll skip probably, all of you know it, that the limit exists at a point, the limit exists if and only if both left and right hand limit exist and are equal to the same value, right? You can prove it by sequences very easily, because if the limit exists, right, supposing this limit exists and is equal to L, then for every sequence Cn going to C, f of Cn must go to L. So in particular limits from the left also it will happen. So left limit exists, value is L. In particular it will happen also for sequences only from the right. So right limit exists and equal to L. So you can easily prove it by sequences if you like. Or split your interval in the epsilon delta definition into two parts, because it happens for every mod x minus C less than delta, which is same as saying C minus delta to C and C to C plus delta. Both of these conditions must hold. So either way it is. So for the sake of giving examples, as I said, for trigonometric functions, we'll assume the following limits. Most of you have done it by drawing a circle, drawing a triangle, taking area of sector is less than area of triangle and making those estimates. So we'll assume those for the time being, that limit of sine theta, theta going to 0 plus, the right hand limit is equal to 0. This cos theta is equal to 1, sin theta by theta is 1. And you can change theta to minus theta and use trigonometric properties to prove that left hand limits also exist and are equal. So we'll assume these properties. That limit sin theta, theta going to 0 is 0, cos theta, theta going to 0 is equal to 1, and sin theta by theta is equal to 1. Okay? I think I have 2 minutes, so let me probably say something. We looked at limit x going to C equal to something. We can also look at limit x going to infinity, like we did for sequences. Supposing the function is defined over the whole real line, we would like to know what happens to f of x as x goes on increasing. For large values of x, what happens to f of x? So we can make a definition. We can write limit of fx, x going to plus infinity is equal to L. What should happen? You want to say that its limit is L. That means fx should be close to L. For what values of x? For all large values of x. That should be the definition. Yes? See, forget everything else. You just want to look at limit x going to plus infinity fx is equal to L. You want to give a meaning to this. Intuitively, what is limit? That is the value the function is coming close to when x is coming close to this value. So fx is coming close to the value L. That means the distance fx minus L should be made small. For what x? For which x? For all x which is large enough. So what is the meaning of saying that all x large enough from some stage onwards? So given epsilon greater than 0, there is a x naught. So that for all x bigger than x naught, the error fx minus L is less than epsilon. Closeness, once you understand what is closeness, close to infinity means what? X bigger than something. Close to minus infinity will mean what? X less than something. So you can define what is x going to minus infinity also similarly. Okay. So given epsilon, there is a x naught, so that whenever x is less than, I have taken x naught positive. Okay. Keeping in mind delta is always positive. So x less than minus x naught should imply fx minus L is less than epsilon. So that is the concept of limit x going to infinity. I think let us forget, there is no time to show something more. So like 1 over x, limit of 1 over x, x going to infinity is equal to 0. So what is the proof? Given epsilon greater than 0, you can choose x0 to be equal to 1 over epsilon. So then what happens? 1 over x less than 1 over x naught less than epsilon for all x bigger than. So fx close to 0. Right? Similarly, x going to minus infinity is equal to 0. Limit theorems. For example, what is the limit of this? X going to infinity of this thing. Now this you have been doing it mechanically in your till now, right? You do what you do because you want to look at x going to infinity, right? So you know from here 1 over x will go to, now this is a clue. As x goes to infinity, 1 over x will go to 0. So now you try to bring in 1 over x. So divide by x square and then take the limit and then use the limit theorems. Okay, so that limit is equal to. So we have justified those things. I think let me stop here. So essentially what we have discussed today is the concept of limit of a function by sequences, by epsilon delta method, saying the two are equal, left hand limit, the right hand limit, and we extended the concept to limit x going to infinity. Okay, let us stop.